G'day guys, I'm going to be speaking to Badrun Khan. She's running to represent the 14th Congressional District in next Tuesday's primary. She's taking on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Michele Cabrera to represent a district that covers Sunnyside, Corona, Elmhurst, Astoria, and portions of the Bronx. Okay. Well, good morning, Badrun. Thank you very much for joining me today and talking to us about your run in the next Tuesday's race. So first of all, I just wanted to ask you, what prompted you to run in the first place?
Sure. So in the last 2 years, we have the same issue that the Congresswoman came into. We still have issues with housing, issues with healthcare, issues with jobs and immigration. Nothing has changed in 2 years. And then we have a very Congresswoman who's nationally famous, very fanfare she has with her. But unfortunately, we had the biggest epicenter of COVID-19 in our district. And about a year ago, I decided last May, I'm like, you know what, we need some changes. It's not always about the national. Sometimes you have to figure out what our district needs to, because we are suffering as a minority, as any kind of community. I don't think we should just say only people of color. Everybody's suffering. The white people, the people of color, the Muslims, the Jewish, everybody's suffering right now. And I just felt it was time to come out there, and I'm in the district for 22 years. And also because I was a former president of an association, so I know Bronx very well too. So I'm like interlinked with both ways. So that's why I decided, I'm like, there has to be some changes.
Okay. Now, I often see you on community board too, because I cover the area. But what would you like to see, on the ground here in say, northern Western Queens particularly?
Right now? Right now, I need to see how can we get funding for the small business and make them open up again. And that is, I know the stimulus package, as both of the one candidate kept on saying, you didn't support this and you didn't support this. I think we need to support our small businesses. So give them a hand. Grants, not a loan, grants to help them open up. Right now, it's not happening. So because I live in the neighborhood, I like to go to the restaurants. I have breakfast on certain days. I have a place I go for Mother's Day. And we see how this is just not working for them. And I feel bad. We have like a barbershop that my brothers and my family go to. I have a salon that I go to. And we don't know if they could open again. Because we don't know if they could afford the back rent that they have for 3 months. So I actually want to see that the working class bring equality into our community.
Right. Okay. I mean, one of your platforms that I have seen is a universal income of $1,000 a month. Is that correct?
Yeah. The permanent universal income. I actually started that months ago, like early in June or July. It was not because of the pandemic, because I dealt with in my community a lot of battered women, domestic violence. And when I was reading about this, I think this is such a way to get people out of poverty. It will help them to, like the battery home they are, because I work with a lot of female. They called the police. We went to all the paperwork. 2 months later, Ms. Khan, you have to help me. I don't know how to survive. I don't have any funds. And she goes back to that domestic violence home. And I think that universal basic income will give them an edge to leave, because there is some income. That's one single mom, single dad. And I think it's not a lot if you calculate it by per day or per month, but it's something so they could invest in themselves, work with them. And I really am a big supporter of that. And I wish they make it permanent. And we need it.
Right. I mean,
and food insecurity is also very big. And that will actually help with food.
Okay. What other, national policies like that would you propose? I mean, universal health care is one thing, but I have heard you say that it would be better in terms of speed to go with a public option. What are your thoughts on those types of platforms?
Well, I think the public option, like Joe Biden, I'm always considered the public option, but also I want to be able to keep, like say a job gives you the health insurance. If you want to keep that is something pro-choice. And also the union has their health insurance, because I work with a lot of rural unions in my past job. They should be able to keep that. But if they don't, that opportunity of affordable health care is something that we all need right now. Trying to pass Medicare for all would be very difficult, as you know, with the administration. And how long we're going to wait that? So in the meantime, let's do it now when people need it. So with the public option, people get it right away. And in New York especially, it's pretty easy right now to get health insurance. But yes, I'm not saying everybody, we need to work on it to get more people on it, and to make it less expensive from the other side. For example, we need to make sure we negotiate prescription costs. I paid $62 for an eye drop. That needs to go away. That's just insane. And that's where the lobbying people are working with other candidates from these institutions. The second thing is co-payment. If you go to a specialist, it's $50, $150. Those co-payments needs to go away. The deductible is like $3,000. So we need to work on these issues. And public option is there. People could go on, but if they want to keep a choice, I think they're able to keep a choice. And I also know Senator Sanders tried to do, it didn't even pass his committee, I believe so. So let's take step towards it, but let's figure out what we need to do now.
Right, I hear you. I hear you.
I just want to do it now for my people here. People need it right now. It's so sappy. And I also said something is people who are laid off, the companies should be mandatory to give them a year health insurance. I think there should be some law of that, because with the pandemic, people lost their jobs.
Absolutely. I mean, how do you think, though, some companies would be able to pay for that? I mean, a small business would struggle, wouldn't they, to pay for healthcare?
Most small businesses, actually, they rarely offer healthcare. It usually goes to the public option, I believe. But I'm saying bigger companies.
Yeah.
Amazon, Google. I'm talking to the big fortune companies, that if you lay people off, you need to give them an option of health insurance.
Right.
And that needs to be a benefit that we should pass right away.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of support for that. What differentiates you from, the incumbent Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I mean, you touched on it a few moments ago, but where do you think you provide more for constituents here?
Okay, the difference I have is I believe that I live in the district. I walk around the district. I know what people are working, want, and need. And I think Ms. Ocasio was a great congresswoman. I'm not saying she's not very well respected, but I just think her ambition and towards the congressional board is a little bit different. She's more into the national and other things. And I think here, right now, we need someone to work with the 14 district and see how can we get out of this pandemic. For example, it's been all over the papers, we're gonna have a big second wave again. And I wanna make sure that, how is my hospital prepared for this? I have lost very personal family, and we have lost almost 200 to 250 people in my community. My parents are from Bangladesh, and pretty much Elmhurst, Jackson Heights area. So I think that needs to be prepared. And some of her ideology, I'm a little bit different. Like, I believe the Green New Deal is a little bit unrealistic without nuclear energy. And she said she's open door, but she was on the Bernie campaign that she was anti-nuclear. Now she's saying that she's with nuclear energy with this 50% carbon. Yeah, so I'm like, certain things like that, I don't agree with a certain point of view. Also, I think that we need to push more NYCHA funding. If you go to NYCHA, this is so sad if you walk into NYCHA. So a couple of these things that I thought it was unrealistic. I think we need to make sure that whatever we promise, we get these promises. And the other issue is, like, if jobs, how is she gonna create jobs? How are you gonna take people out of poverty? I know that's a big slogan, take people out of poverty, but without opportunity, how do you take an individual out of poverty?
Right. Okay. What sort of policies would you propose then to get more, healthcare to the district, so a coronavirus second wave doesn't do as much damage and devastation to our area?
Well, the biggest policy around, we need to make sure the hospital's equipped enough. So the first responder, the employees, like the front desk receptionist, everybody has enough equipment to make sure they're covered themselves and protect themselves. That's something that needs to be done right away. Not wait till the last minute after the pandemic hit again, because as you know, it's going to hit again. They keep on saying it. That's one, we should make sure that it's funded well. Material-wise, not people's salaries. I always say material-wise need to be funded. And we should also get other spaces. enough that we don't overwhelm the hospital. As you know, a lot of hospitals closed in this district. So there's only Elmhurst, and Mount Sinai is a little bit farther away. So anybody who gets sick from heart attack to an asthma attack, everybody's going to Elmhurst because the ambulance are there. So that's something that we need to make sure that fund goes through for equipment. And it's not always about people's salaries and not about administration. And we should actually raise the salaries of the first responders who's been spending hours and hours, and especially the people who are working to keep the hospitals clean. Like they need to be protected, having enough equipment. That's one. The second is I need to make sure that we have able to get other companies to come in to the district. But when they come in, companies come into the district, we need to make sure that they invest in my infrastructure. They need to invest in the quality of life and not just come in, okay, I'm coming in here to make money. No, you come in to you provide jobs, but you also provide jobs to help the people to take them out of poverty.
Okay.
And then NYCHA, we need more funding for NYCHA, definitely.
Right. Well, another thing, Badrun, is you've got there's another person in the race, and that's Michele Caruso Cabrera. Where do you differ from her? I mean, she's sort of coming more from the moderate side of things. What are your thoughts on her, and how are you different from her?
Well, that's an easy question. If you go on her website, there's no policy at all. The only thing is you could download a picture from her website. So I don't know what she stands on healthcare. We don't know what she stands on immigration. She stands on small business. There's nothing for me to differentiate because I don't know what her stands. What is she looking for? What is she going to do for the Congressional District 14? She just moved into the community maybe about 3 months ago. She lived in the Trump Towers. So she doesn't know the community like I do. And that's the biggest difference. And, you know, she was a former Republican. She has a really Republican idea. In her book, she wrote she wants to eliminate Medicare, which I don't know where she stands in a certain things. And I'm different because I'm not a Republican. I was a born Democrat. My parents was a JFK supporter. And we've always been in the ideology. The Democrat Party helps the immigrants, helps the people who are people of color of every kind, every race. And I think Michele, I don't know if you heard her on her debate, the only thing she attacks the congressman is, you're not here. We already got to that. We heard it, MIA. I say she was MIA for 20 years out of this community. She has not been here. And I'm much more different in that I want to care for the people. I want to work with the people. I'm a community activist, and I don't know where she stands. And being her book was, the forward was written by Larry Kudlow. I said that many times.
Oh, no, I have heard you make that point known, actually.
I did it because I want people to know that she's taking the opportunity right now to change herself to a Democrat, and all the newspaper actually said that she was getting funded by the people who's funding Trump. I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, if anybody doesn't read it, even Fox News, New York Post, everybody's talking about it. And you know what? I'm grassroots. I get funding from the bodega owner, from the Lyft driver, so I'm here.
No, and good for you. Good for you. Now, one of the big topics right now is, of course, police reform, police defunding, you know, in the wake of, the killing, I guess, of George Floyd. Would you,
Correct.
Where do you stand on that right now?
So, you know what? I have a couple of issues when you talk about defunding. I want to make sure I want to do budget cuts. That's what I feel like it's a better word for it. So when anybody says they want to defund something, they take away the programs that we have right now, which I'm worried about. That how many police officers will be cut? It will be the programs they'll cut. So if you take budget away, the first thing is I'm going to say one thing I said the other day, also in my debate. We need to make sure that all police officers do not have guns. Not everywhere you need guns. Second thing is the criminal reform needs to be invested more in. Like, for example, we need to invest money in special education in the prison system. We need to make sure when they're in prison, they make sure they get trained. And right now, they're getting 62 cents to make hand sanitizer. What hope are we giving these people? They're serving their time. we need to make sure we pay them minimum wage. And when they come out, they can adjust to society, because they're whatever they committed, they're making sure they committed a crime and they're being punished for it. But when they come out, they should be able to act in society. I want to make sure all that budget cut doesn't affect these programs. And the biggest issue is 6 months training for a police officer. I don't agree. And that needs to be emphasized a little bit more. And what happened to George Floyd, it was just so sad. It hurt myself because I'm being from an immigrant family. But we need to make sure the police has the accountability of what they did in terms that it's wrong. And I do support the Security Act 50-A, the state, that's something, the qualifying immunity. But we have to make sure when we cut the budget, we're not cutting any programs that will help in the jail system.
Okay. What about the number of officers on the streets? I think the number is about 38,000. They're going to reduce it to 35, and it could even come down further. What do you think in terms of the number of officers on the streets or in the force? Do you think the number's fine as it is now, or would you be happy with a defunding that would lead, or budget cuts that would lead to fewer officers?
Well, I think the office could be less, because I also feel like you don't need police officers everywhere. I think there should be some eliminations of where they're going to be. So that's what my point. Like some places they don't need to be there. And I also said not every police officer needs a gun. So certain places we could cut that. But also everybody knows, I believe there's almost 600 people retiring this year from the police academy. Almost about that. So then the grade of pay decreases too. So that's funds that a little bit opens up. So that funds could also be allocated. I'm a financial controller, so I do about a lot of budgeting. So that could be allocated to certain places. Also, I think there's an issue that I think our force needs to have more diversity, because there's always a study that African American actually don't shoot African Americans. So we need to have more diversity in our police stations, high ranks everywhere.
Okay.
And that would help.
Right. What other things would you like voters to know about you and what you would bring to the position?
So I want people to know that I'm not a politician. I was a leader in the community. I have 2 daughters. I want to make sure that people in my district are heard. Because when I walk to Pelham Parkway, for example, because I distribute food with ICNA every Saturday morning. And the people here, it's like, sometimes we just want you guys around just to see how we can help. Some people don't have the Twitter account, the email account. They're old-fashioned. They want to knock on the door and just hear from you. Listen, I'm having this trouble. Your office wasn't helpful enough. Can you? So I just want to get back that I will come back home. I know that it's required to stay in Washington, but this is my people, and I want to come back and I want to hear their concerns. And I like going into understanding what people say and how people talk, and to hear people. I'm a people person. And that's what I want people to know. And I also want people to know that I know one subject we didn't touch on real quick. I want to talk about it. I want to make sure special education is forced in our public school. I'm a parent who actually has a daughter who actually suffered. And we had to actually, being that I was raised here, born here, I was able to fight and get the solution for my daughter that most people don't have. And I think the budget cuts in special ed needs to be overturned. We need more special ed programs. We need people to help that. And I really want to push that. And also for the minority community who doesn't have a lot of understanding about the special education system.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for joining me today, and best wishes in your run.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to tell people to come out June 23rd, 2020 to vote for Badrun Khan.
All right. Terrific. Well, have a good day. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.